Hey everyone, grateful to be with you this day. My name is Colin Mathewson. I'm a co-pastor at St. Luke's in North Park with my wife Laurel. I'm also a board member of RefugeeNet. Y'all are lucky to have Catherine Baum here today. She's the executive director of RefugeeNet. Hope you say hi to her afterward. But thank you to Mother Nina for inviting me to speak to you today. Y'all might know or not know that the Outreach Committee supports both St. Luke's and RefugeeNet generously each year, so thank you so much, and thought we could give you a bit of an update on what we've been up to. But first, you may or may not know some of the backstory, so thought I would share that. St. Luke's has been around for about a century now. We've been just celebrating the centennial this last year, and in the late 1990s, the energy was fading a bit, and losing a bit of a sense of purpose, and congregants began to feel a call to minister to the stranger, whom they supposed would be Spanish-speaking and arriving from the border. Well, God is full of surprises, and so sent instead some of the first refugees to arrive in this country from Sudan's brutal civil war. Now, Sudan was a British colony for some time, and thus created a thriving Anglican church there. So when these newcomers arrived in San Diego, they searched for an Episcopal church for help. Rumor has it they went to St. James the first week, and then they sent them down to St. Luke's, probably because there was a thrift store there. But we welcomed them, and though we had been preparing for a different congregation or a different ministry of hospitality, we managed still to extend a warm welcome. Well enough, apparently, that one of the newcomers said this prophecy. He said, "If you're serious about welcoming us, we will fill this place." And darned if that didn't happen over the ensuing decade. By 2010, St. Luke's was almost entirely South Sudanese American. Now, was there some conflict along the way? Oh, I can only imagine. One story I enjoyed hearing was how it horrified the old-timers that during the coffee hour, the Sudanese kids would take all the sugar packets and just eat them straight while they ran around the parish hall unsupervised, which is funny, and it was really hard. And it was an illustration of some of the other cultural differences that folks at St. Luke's had to work through. This sort of hospitality is really trying, and I think it is only made possible by God's help. So a quick reminder about what it means to be a refugee. It means that the United Nations and the United States have determined that you are forced to flee your country because of violence or persecution. It then means you wait, often in a refugee camp, for years and years and years. So families that have recently arrived to St. Luke's have spent more than 20 years in these camps until a country is ready to take you. When you arrive, you have work authorization, a green card, and a path to citizenship. In this way, refugees are very different than economic migrants or asylum seekers. They've waited their turn and followed all legal procedures. Well, to be able to welcome such an influx of not only newcomers to the church, but new Americans over a relatively short period of time, some organization was needed. From this ad hoc ministry that began with a pickup from the airport when a family just arrived, RefugeeNet was born. Its first name was St. Luke's Refugee Network and later Episcopal Refugee Network of San Diego. RefugeeNet became its own independent nonprofit in 2008 and has continued to grow in size and sophistication in the years since, serving Korean refugees from Myanmar, Arabic-speaking refugees from across the Middle East, and more recently, Swahili-speaking Congolese refugees from a Tanzanian refugee camp. RefugeeNet now offers a weekly food distribution to 170 families from its home base at St. Luke's, which St. Bart's nearly always provides the drivers for, and a lot of the volunteers, which is amazing, so thank you. RefugeeNet also offers weekly tutoring to about 30 kids in City Heights during the school year and case management for resettled refugees who speak Arabic or Swahili. One of the reasons I serve on its board and why I appreciate RefugeeNet so much is it's one of those scrappy nonprofits that gets a lot done on few staff hours with very little overhead. St. Luke's donates the office and program space, and volunteers are engaged whenever possible. And we're always looking for more tutors and food distribution volunteers, so let us know or Catherine know after the service if you want more info about that. One exciting piece of news we just found out about last week, which is new in our 25-year history, is that we are going to get to resettle refugees directly ourselves. So we've never done that before. There was only 4 agencies in San Diego that did that, and we would just sort of support folks after that initial resettlement period. But we have received authorization from the Department of State to resettle up to 30 refugees ourselves in the next few months, which is exciting, but feels a little daunting too. So we will probably be reaching out to you all for some help. Maybe you can adopt one of these 4 to 7 families to help furnish their first home or help their kids get the supplies and clothes they need for school, and generally just get them settled into their new life here. To be part through your presence and prayer and support of St. Luke's and RefugeeNet is to witness the American dream coming to life, though in fits and starts, and with obstacles that previous generations were not required to overcome. Take Nicodemus Lim, who arrived in the States as a teenager after having survived the brutalities of war as a child, who survived a trek of hundreds of barefoot miles with only other children as protection, before reaching a refugee camp and then later being kicked out of that camp by the Ethiopian military and having to get to another camp safely in Kenya, who knew of no family members who had survived the attack on his village. Nicodemus arrived to the United States having never seen, much less touched, a computer. And yet through job training and high school equivalency classes, a scholarship to Point Loma Nazarene University, he landed a job as a database analyst with the city of San Diego. He's now the father of 5 adorable children, is St. Luke's junior warden, and the vice president of the RefugeeNet board. Last year, with the help of a congregant serving as a co-signer for his mortgage, his family was able to purchase a home. But that story spans 25 years. And you can imagine the struggle, the hard work, the disappointment and despair, the confusion and anxiety, the car accidents and the health scares, the sending money back to relatives in the refugee camps, however distant the relatives might be, the decade-long effort to bring his brother and mother-in-law to live with them, their family's generous, current months-long hospitality to 2 recent asylum seekers. Life is full for them and blessed, and is still a white-knuckled ride, because San Diego is a very expensive place to live, as you all know. Given the lack of affordable housing, we at St. Luke's have felt for some time a call to build housing on the property we own next to the church, a nearly 10,000 square foot vacant lot that used to boast our original chapel and a couple rental homes. We're now close to that dream becoming a reality, as a developer we have partnered with is working on closing their financing in the next few months. We'd ground lease our property to the developer for 100 years, which is a long time, in exchange for a substantial sum and the satisfaction of knowing that we helped to do our part to contribute positively to San Diego's affordable housing crisis. We hope some of our congregants will be able to live there, and we also hope to use the proceeds from the ground lease to help congregants who are close to being able to buy a home, but need more help with the down payment, to give them a silent second deferred loan that will get them in the door and that they can pay back when they sell or refinance someday. Most Americans, as you know, build wealth through the equity in their houses, but I can think of only 2 families who own their home at St. Luke's within the Sudanese and Congolese communities. Many of these families have been here 25 years. If you have other ideas of how best to use our ground lease proceeds to help our congregants build wealth and afford their housing, we'd love to hear them. And if anyone would like to hear how serving as a co-signer on a mortgage works, we'd love to chat more about that too. Where is God in all this. All over the place, to be sure. Those whom I have met who have arrived here as refugees make sense of their survival by the providence and protection of God. Period. They make sense, for better or worse, of the good and bad that happens to them in this country as God's will, too. The faith of these suffering, hardened sojourners is alive and absolutely essential to their well-being and resiliency. And it is nothing less than inspiring and a testimony to the reality that God has not given up on any of us. Jesus is right next to all of us, always in our suffering, and ready for us to lean in and rely on him in our troubles and to praise him when all things are going well. Thank you again, St. Bart's, for supporting these efforts to welcome and care for our nation's newcomers. And please know that you are invited deeper into this story of resettlement and renewed thriving, though it may take many years and come with many setbacks. The story of St. Luke's welcoming of East African refugees and the beautiful ministry of RefugeeNet that blossomed from this initial hospitality is a story of simply doing the work that God puts before us. Maybe not with tons of sophistication, but with lots of love. Thanks be to God.